Okay, so hi guys, and welcome to another episode with Further Sports Training and one of our partners, Dynamikos Training Network. So today we will talk about safety around the house, and then also a little bit more on first aid and what Dynamikos also does. So today we welcome Norman Turner from Dynamikos Training Network. Are you Norman?
Hi, hello, I'm good, thank you. And yourself?
Can't complain. Norman, can you give us a little bit more background on Dynamikos Training Network and what they're all about and what they've been doing for the last few years?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. Thank you, Elroy. Yeah, we actually this year, April now, during this lockdown time, we've actually turned 15 company that actually looked at universities and colleges and educational institutions to train them and equip them from there. And I think that's how we met you way back when. And since then we've grown quite a bit. We do a wide variety and derivatives from that. All of our trainers comes from the emergency medical field, ambulance services, fire department, and a few of a wider variety as well. We've also started to do health and safety compliance audits, making sure that the company is not only compliant with regards to training, but also the way that the office looks, fire equipment, signage, stuff like that. Yeah. And we've grown quite a bit, and to stay up with the market, we've done online training courses. We have a nice platform that we developed for us specifically for our industry to just to look after compliance in more than one way.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, and like you said, yeah, we started way back. I actually thought about it earlier on when we were both trainers at Dynamikos, and it's actually this year will be about 22 years. 22 years. It's a long way. So and then obviously you taking ownership of the company from the previous owners also.
Yes. I took over about 2.5 years ago. Yeah, almost 3 years. Yeah, towards three years now.
Yeah, and in that, Norman, I must say, in that 2 years that you've taken over, almost 3 years, as you said, you have brought a lot of changes to the brand of Dynamikos. Like I said, I've been involved since the company's birth back then as a facilitator. And just to give, I want to give the audience just a more view on the partnership between FAST and Dynamikos is that we would like to introduce people to a brand that's not just like the name says Dynamikos, a dynamic brand of first aid where it's so much about practical. I know how you guys are on practicals, and that is why we ventured together with you guys as well. So because we in the sporting arena and fitness, it's so important that any personal trainer, any coach, they need to be equipped with the knowledge of assisting when it is needed immediately. And that is where Dynamikos steps in for the first aid. If there's an injury, if it's blood, if there is cardiac arrest, if there is an asthma attack, if a person faints. And I think something that's similar that happens a lot within the sporting environment is just if you didn't eat properly, low blood sugar levels, how do you treat that? How do you handle that person? So I think that is some of the topics that we will be touching on as well. So that is why we as Further Sports Training love this partnership with you guys. And like I said, we have a long-standing relationship as friends as well. So Norman, if you can just enlighten the people with more of what do you think is the basic safety stuff that we can look out for around the house while we are faced with this lockdown that's happening?
Elroy, the partnership between us comes far, it's for FAST and Dynamikos, but I think you and I ourselves are like-minded in many ways, not only with business, but also with not burning a bridge and taking partnerships on instead of trying to do everything ourselves. So yeah, I thank you for that. Yeah, just to answer your question, with this lockdown becomes a wide variety of things for us at home, especially if we have got kids, especially smaller kids like you and I have. It's one thing to have them at school and wanting to make sure that the school is up to date. But now we are faced with, now us as parents, we need to be up to date with what's going on. It's not only the school now that's faced with certain emergencies at school, but now we're sitting with that at home. So one of the big things that happens at a home is, as soon as they play with Legos and toys, they put stuff in their mouth. I know my eldest wasn't too worried about putting stuff in his mouth, but my youngest, again, puts everything in his mouth. So it depends from child to child, but that's a big thing. And choking is scary, not only for the child, but also for the parent. And it's so important to step up and actually act in the right way as soon as we possibly can, and one of the big things there is that we don't follow the myths. So we don't turn them upside down. You kind of shake them by the legs kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it's basic back slaps. You're encouraging them to cough, and if we can see the thing coming out of the mouth, we try and get that out there, of course, with our fingers. But that's one big thing. And the other thing is, if any kids are even remotely like mine, as soon as, and because of the water restrictions in the Cape Town area as well, we all have, or we often have, a bucket, full of water somewhere, either in the shower to collect this first bit of water, or outside. And it's so easy for younger kids, I'll say from 3 and below. It could be a bit older as well, but if they fall headfirst into that bucket, they're just not strong enough to get themselves out of there.
Yeah.
So it's important to be aware of where we place these buckets and where our kids are at all time. And it's difficult to keep our tabs on them because they disappear like in a second, So we need to kind of make sure that we're aware of what is around us.
That's great.
Electricity, I'm sure that you guys could hear my kids at the background, they're playing outside here, but electricity, trampolines, they fall off that, head injuries, there's so many things around the house. But if we put a lead on outside to drill, to mow the lawn, for example, they want to pick it up and they want to help put in the plug.
Great.
So it's so important to be vigilant, aware of what they are doing, because most of these things are preventable. But the problem is, and that's why we do training, and what we love about our training is we try and prevent, but we're all human beings. So something goes wrong, unfortunately. And the best thing that we can do is to make sure that we are equipped with the right knowledge and training to actually act in that way, or to act in that at that time when this tragedy strikes.
Yeah.
And that, I think you and I spoke about it. It's not like you have to become a doctor. It's you literally need a 4-hour or 6-hour course to run through the basics, quite in depth stuff. But the practical part, like you mentioned a moment ago, practical exercise on mannequins, stuff like that. That's what's going to equip us to help our kids when something goes wrong.
Yeah, Norman, and that is why it's so important that I think is, like you said there, so that people are equipped and ready. It's the same like us that's working with athletes. Perhaps we trying to work with the athletes to make them manage and handle the stress, what's needed. If it's come say it's a rugby game, soccer game, netball game, hockey, kids get or athletes get taught how to act in a certain situation on a gameplay. But many of us don't get taught in a way of how to act in real life situations when we face these emergencies. And that is why it's so important. That's why I said I love the whole Dynamikos approach to the whole first aid. It's so much practical, so dynamic. I mean, I've been involved with the company for more than 10 years. It's the course content. It's what you need, but it's easily, practically to apply as well. Now, like in sport, like I said earlier on, if you just want to give us,
that's what we try and do.
Exactly. So, if you can touch on, I think something that is something common. Perhaps you mentioned now your kids are running around in the yard and stuff like that, and people might be facing this where kids don't always have access to play into a yard. Perhaps they need to stay indoors, but also with the social distancing and stuff like that.
Mm.
But now they play indoors, they run and they fall, and there he knocks his head against the corner of the cupboard. And now we're dealing with blood. You can just give us a basic rundown because, like you said earlier on, so that we don't go about the myths. Oh, now you must put sugar into the wound, or you must put sand into the
Oh
wound.
yeah.
Can you just give us a basic rundown? How do you deal with that situation like that in bleeding? And then obviously the trauma of the parent as well.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. That's important. The trauma of the parent, eh? And that's often where we make a mistake, is that we freak out and then we freak out the child even more. So that's a big thing. And I'm going to start with that. Is that we have to be, as parents, we have to be like a duck on water, you know. So it's floating on top smooth, but underneath it's going crazy. So we need to try and act for the child's benefit, just to stay calm and relaxed. But still, you know, with the head injury, as my kids, my one boy, when we were on a holiday, we were on a way to go play outside, and he pulled away and he fell with his head backwards against the fireplace of this place where we were staying in, and his head was cut open with a nice big cut at the back of his head. Just, you know, we train first aid, we come from the emergency field, and now I'm acting as a parent, not as a medic, and you kind of hit blank. You're like, wow, okay, so to repeat things. And the one thing that we need to work on concussion, and this is where a lot of the myths are. And if you don't mind me just interject this here, it's not a sales point as such, but on our Facebook page, before lockdown started and after it's going to lift again, we actually have these Monday myths that we address. So it's not to sell a course, but to actually just look at myths that we, or old wives' tales, or whatever you want to call it, that people actually adhere to, like you said, the sand in a wound kind of thing. So and we talk about kids and bleeding stuff as well. So that's a good place to have a look at these myths. But right, so it's important to think of this child's head, the brain, but we can only treat what we see. And what we see, and you mentioned blood, so if there's bleeding, is that we need to stop the bleeding as soon as possible, and stay away from cotton wool as far as you possibly can. So a nice clean towel or piece of clothing or something, and you just put it on that wound. So for example, if it's here, just put a nice amount of pressure on it and hold it there. And while you're doing this, you need to talk to your child. I know you probably, as a parent, may be freaked out, but it's important that you talk and calm your child down. Tell them it's fine. We're going to sort you out. We're going to phone the doctor, or we're going to take you to a doctor, whatever the case may be. If your child's scared of a doctor, perhaps don't say that yet. But it depends on your child. It's the best way that you can keep your child calm. Calming them down is probably one of the most important things that we can do to assist in any emergency, and even more so with the child. It's so important to keep the child calm. Then, like I said, to stop the bleeding as well. Yeah. And if there's any signs of changes in your child after the fact, so they are more sleepy than normal, or they are distressed, or something, they act out of their normal being, then it's important to actually speak to your healthcare professional, to your medical doctor, the pediatrician, or your GP, or whoever your contact is in emergency, and just ask them for guidance of what to do. And if you're too scared, if you're not sure, take them to the hospital. That's the best thing that you can do. But yeah, I don't know if there's anything specific else already about that you'd like me to mention, but that's
No, I think
the basics.
yeah, I mean, in a nutshell, you summed it up perfectly for, I think, everybody. I mean, like I said, there's so many myths out there. Also, with the current situation in the world, with the pandemic of the coronavirus that's happening, there's so many things happening around, so many stories from where it originated from, and how you cannot do it, all that. So there will always be myths around everything. I think there's, like I said, within our industry, in the fitness and the sports, there's certain myths also. Certain things might have worked for certain athletes, and it might not even work for other athletes as well. But I just want to bring it a bit. I want to bring it a little bit closer to the times that we're currently facing with the pandemic, where this is actually something that attacks a person called your breathing as well. And to just touch on it, you mentioned it now. As a parent, sometimes we go in so much stress as well. We don't know what to do. What would your advice would be if you find somebody that is in the stress and having breathing difficulties? Because we might not know. It might just be asthma. It might just be that you're in shock. It might just be that it might be the virus also. So in this days and age that we have to keep our social distancing, but how can we assist somebody in a situation that where they find themselves with a breathing problem at this stage?
Yeah. All right, I just want to start with, as soon as you talk about the coronavirus and everything around that, just take note that I would advise not to become too involved, apart from trying to keep the person as calm as possible. But you have to phone healthcare professionals, especially if we talk about the COVID-19, the coronavirus. Yeah, so it's best would not be to get too involved. Obviously, if the person is struggling to breathe, they are losing consciousness. It becomes a life-threatening emergency. But while they are conscious, is to try and talk to them, keeping them calm, trying to get their head off the issue at hand at that point. But just with regards to the coronavirus, just be very vigilant on what our law and the numbers
and
that's available out there.
Exactly. Yeah, that's why I just wanted to touch on it, because from a first aid point of view, it's so important. That's what you just said, is that there is certain things in place to battle and fight this disease. And don't try to be a superhero now, because I think across social media platforms and WhatsApp groups, people have been sending enormous amount of info around of this is what you have to drink, and this is what you have to do, and this is what you have to do. And from a first aid point of view, I would like to encourage us, like you said, is contact the numbers that's there. If the person has breathing difficulties, reassure them. Breathing to your nose, out by your mouth, although that might be a problem, but get them to the nearest facility that is needed. Now, Norman, I think I want to touch on something which I think you guys specialize in when it comes into resuscitation. And I think we all see this on movies, and there's a show that I watch daily, weekly on TV. I think it's, I'm correct, it's Chicago Fire. So, and I love it. I love it, but I always look at, if they need to administer resuscitation, they have to do CPR. I look at the way the guys place their hands. I look at how the guys ventilate. And we know the Resus Council always reevaluate, assess these things. Can you give us a bit more detail about what happens during this episode of when we need to do CPR on a person, and when do we do CPR?
All right. When is important. The new guidelines, and like you said, we try and follow as much. Well, not try. We follow the international guidelines from the American Heart Association, from the British Heart Foundation, and so we actually look at these things all the time to make sure that we are on par with what is done internationally. And it's important to know that if you're not a healthcare professional, in other words, if you haven't studied in the emergency field or in the medical field at all, we don't feel for a pulse anymore, and that's what we often see in the movies as well. So that's why I start with that. We assess breathing. If a person is breathing, not gasping or sounds of breathing, it has to be effective. We call it effective breathing. You must see the chest rise and fall. The person has breath. Then there will be a pulse. So then we don't resuscitate. We only start to do CPR when there's no breathing at all. Now, yes, there may be a heartbeat for a short while after the person has stopped breathing, but it's not going to be long because the heart needs the oxygen, so it will stop soon anyway. So it's important to, again, what basic training, if you look at a proper video, perhaps it could give you a better idea, although we prefer hands-on on the mannequin feeling. But so when we start is we need to make sure that the patient is unconscious. So we try and look at the consciousness. We see if they're responding in any way to assess things. And we also try and evaluate as best we can to see if they are breathing or not. We need to make sure that the proper help is on the way. So if the person is not breathing and we're starting to do CPR, we need to make sure that the ambulance has been phoned. And then we need to start doing compressions on the person's chest. And there's a lot of ways of saying where to place your hands. Very basic way to say it is in the middle of the chest. So, you know, this is our chest, that's our abdomen, if you look at the whole thing, but in the middle of our chest, right there in the center of the chest with the heel of our hand. And there's a nice, funny video, which is quite accurate, though, from Vinnie Jones, the old soccer player, where they did it with the British Heart Foundation, that he shows it. And it's in the middle of the chest, and it's hard and fast. So that's what he kind of gets out there. So you press hard and fast in the middle of the chest until further help arrives. Yes, we would prefer, so in the movies we see they ventilate or they blow into the person's mouth or they use a bag valve mask over the people's face. But if you don't have that, you know, and you don't know the person, there's just too many risks. Apart from the COVID-19, there's also a lot of other infections that we can get if we do mouth to mouth without the proper mouth pieces or the mouth or the breathing equipment. That's what I want to say. Yeah. So yeah, that's the crux of it. So no breathing, make sure that the help's on the way, press hard and fast in the middle of the chest, and that should be all there. That's the minimum.
Yeah, I think that is in a nutshell, because of, I mean, like for me that has been doing involved in the medical field and has done that, and even on the dolls, and I think people think it's nice and playful to play with those dolls, but those dolls can give you quite a workout for me. You know, even for me that might be a fit person as well. So Norman, you mentioned earlier on.
I was going to say that, yeah.
You mentioned earlier on, and I'm happy you actually did that, because I want to actually elaborate a bit more on it, because I don't know, there's not a lot of South African companies that's doing it. And I know me and you have been speaking about this idea, and you actually took it further and you made it a reality, is that Dynamikos Training Network has their own online platform where you can actually do an online first aid course. So, and which is really amazing. I've seen it already. You showed it me numerous times. And I think anybody can actually, because I think normally, even corporates as well, where they feel that they can't send the staff away from work because they are much needed staff as well. But now you can actually register online. Your staff can go at home, an hour or two, spend on it, finish it up in the time that they have to finish it up as well, and then be qualified as, and obviously doing the practical with you guys. But now you have more people that you equip with this knowledge, especially if we look at our essential services that's currently happening in our retail stores. How many of our staff that's working in these retail stores do have this basic skill? So can you just give us a bit more rundown? How does the online platform work, and how do people get access to it?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, the online platform, the thing is, the world is going online, and we've started this about a year, perhaps a year and a half ago, to explore this. So this was well in advance of the coronavirus. So, but the online platform is exactly what you were saying. A lot of people leave training, especially from if you have your own company, it's a small business, you have 3 or 4 staff, but you never know when an emergency is going to strike, but you postpone on this training because you don't have the capacity to send a person out of the office for 2 full days of first level 1 training. And that becomes an issue. And we wanted to give everyone an opportunity to get trained and be compliant. So apart from the fact that we want the company to adhere to what the Occupational Health and Safety Act says, we really want, and you and I agree on this, always, we believe everyone should get trained. Yes. Everyone needs this basic training that can save a life, because the next person you save might be a family member or a loved one.
Yeah.
So I think it's important, and that's what we are trying to do with this online services. So we call it a blended learning program, especially with regards to first aid. Why we call it blended is that you do all your theory and your assessment and stuff online as you go through the program, and you have opportunity to then sign up on a Zoom meeting or some meeting like this where we can do a question and answer. I think, if there's something that you're struggling to grasp, then the other part of it, so the biggest part is the online part. The other part of it, and we believe the practical, we've said this a few times in our discussion now, is that we need the person to actually feel what it feels like to press on that chest of that mannequin. So after you've done that course, which is a traditional 2 days, 2 full days, two full day course, now you come in for a 4-hour practical only part. So then all the theory's been done, it's been dealt with online, you have a basic understanding, and you come in, and one of our facilitators, which well qualified and well knowledgeable and all those things, they actually sit there and they spend time with a better way, because you get so much more time to focus on practical only. So in 4 hours time, we do CPR and choking, recovery, bleeding, a lot of the practical aspects that's in the giving us, but really for 4 hours, we're trying to sign up as much people as we can for the online training in lockdown. And as soon as lockdown is lifted, we'll say, okay, well, now we've got a few groups, and we discuss dates, and we say, but come on one of these practical days, and we'll spend 4 hours with you on that practical part. So I do think it adds the value to you as a person, but it also adds value to the client, so you're not wasting time to when you go back to work now after the lockdown.
Yeah, no, because I mean, in the past, I know a lot of people always thought like, oh no, I don't want to help somebody give birth, because, and there's different levels to first aid as well, because you have your level 1, which I understand would be your introductional level, you get to understand, but most importantly, learning the CPR, which we spoke about earlier on, how to keep somebody alive, because that is the number 1 goal of why would you administer CPR, to keep a person alive as long as possible. And then obviously there's level 2, which goes a bit more into detail. And then you start getting to deal with your poisons and those things, if I'm correct. And then also, and obviously dealing with neck injuries as well. So that is why, I'm just going to reiterate it again, why we as sports training took hands with Dynamikos and making them a partner to our venture as well, is that because, once again, coaches need this knowledge. If you're rugby, if it's soccer, if it's netball, because you're going to deal with fractures, you're going to deal with breaks, you're gonna deal with athletes that tear a muscle perhaps, and how do you first approach that? And I think I'm going to leave it to you, Norman, although I also know it, but I would like you to, because you're the expert dealing on a daily basis with these things, is that, come and say, for example, a person is suffering, a coach athlete has a muscle tear, for example. But remember, we don't have X-ray vision. We can't see what's happening in the body. We don't know if it's a tear or if it's just a strain. What is the first treatment that we can assist? Because I believe, from a sports science point of view, and also from sports management, is that the quicker the athlete gets a proper treatment, the quicker we can get that athlete back to play again. So what would your advice be on that?
Yeah, that's quite an interesting, and I like the point that you make. Often an athlete, and I'm perhaps making it a bit too generalized now, but it is true. Often an athlete will want to push through when they're injured, because they want to complete this game or they want to complete this race or whatever it may be. But if they do that, then they actually prevent them from taking part in the near future. Or for a longer time, they have to be off the field or off the track then. Instead of just, when they get injured, stop, get the proper help as soon as you possibly can, recover faster, start training again, and you can act fast on that. Same with the head injury in sports like rugby or martial arts. if you've knocked your head, stay off, 4 or 6 weeks or whatever the doctor says you must do. So with regards to a muscle tear, and I actually think you are the better person to answer because of your sports background. But again, the thing there is to keep your patient calm. Is to keep them calm, to have them stop what they are doing and getting them into rest, to a place where they can actually sit, stretch their muscles, or just keep their legs still, depending on what's wrong. Like I said, if it's a strain or a sprain, depending on what it is, or a tear then. But and then of course, depending on what it is, and that depends on your background and your training, is to actually put pressure on it. Or I know that we used to say for many years that we do the RICE treatment, rest, ice, compression, elevation. That's just been taken off now, so it may change. But anyway, the idea is that the person rests the injured part, the injured leg. Rest is important. Then to get the proper help. So if you need a physio, if you need a biokineticist, if you need a medical doctor, depending on the type of injury, pre-hospitally, from a first aid or a paramedic point of view, I think you can't do that much. We can try and look at the pain. If depending on our qualification, we can give certain medications to relieve the discomfort. But rest is still the most important thing, and then getting to the higher qualified proper help is the most important part. I don't know if you want to add, but you're welcome to.
No, you're 100% correct on that, and I think it's also not like you said. I know in a general person, somebody gets injured at home, they're going to rush the person to the emergency unit at the hospital. But sometimes you find it's a bit difficult in sporting arenas. Is that because that, like you just said about the qualification, also from a coach's point of view, is that we need to educate ourselves with the medical side also and the biomechanical side of these things, so that we know what is the chain that needs to be followed. So it's like you said, rest immediately, get him to a doctor where you can get a scan done, get the scan done. Okay, do we have physio needed? Yes, there's physio needed from that. What is the rehab? And that is the whole chain that I think that everybody needs to understand and needs to happen. Now, yes, so we're almost at the end of this. So Norman, I just want to tell people, guys, there's exciting things going to happen in the near future with Foresight Sports Training and Dynamikos. Exciting things planned that I've been working with them for quite a while, that me and Norman has been chatting back and forth. We will be conducting courses with them also, so keep an eye open for that as well. I'm being busy hectically in the background with those things and communicating with Norman about that. So guys, Norman, can you just tell us where can people all reach you guys? I think you guys on all social media, but if you can just give all your social media handles also, and I also add that to the video after we edit and put it online as well.
Okay, sure. All right, I will send you all of our social media information, but we are on Facebook and Instagram. And then the best place to, as you can see behind Alra, our name is there, Dynamikos. So if you go to dynamikos.co.za, all our information is on there. We are working remotely at the moment, but we are answering our phones and we are responding to emails. So the best place to email to is info@dynamikos.co.za, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can.
Okay,
so
Norman,
if there's any information, you can either email us or get us there.
So Norman, thank you very much for taking out of your busy schedule, because remember, I know during this lockdown we try to spend so much time with our families as well, and you have 2 boys as well. Family man, thank you very much for taking out the time, sharing some more tips how we can stay safe around the house and what we can do. Guys, like I said, there's exciting things going to be happening with Dynamikos and FAST. We're launching a new program that's going to come out, that's going to make it more easy for people, coaches, athletes, everybody to access proper knowledge and proper upskill ourselves. So guys, thank you for tuning in today. See you on the next episode.